to this episode of the Sacred Gut Punch podcast. I'm Dr. Tomi White Bryan, recording from Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm a coach and consultant in human and organizational performance and the creator of Emotional Intelligence 3.0, a system for achieving extraordinary performance. And I'm so excited today to have a special guest, a friend of mine, someone I've known through a community of practice I belong to. Just a great human being, a sweet soul. You know, he and I were together a couple of weeks ago and he just said something that turned my world upside down. We were just having a little conversation about what is the effect of love on things, and Jeff just dropped a wisdom bomb in my lap that's still radiating. So, Jeff Stone, welcome to the podcast. I'm grateful to have you as a guest.
Oh, thank you, Tomi. I'm now, now you've piqued my curiosity. What did I say?
Well, remember now, we were talking about polarities, opposites.
Right.
Right? Like, love and fear or love and hatred, whatever you see as the opposite. And what happens when you bring love into that equation, right? And it then unifies it. It becomes a trinity.
A duality with
yes.
a trinity to create a trinity
yes.
that brings you to the unity. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You know, I'm trying not to get weepy-eyed about the fact that what finally hit me last week was to love the fear.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just shifted my world. And I just want you to know our what was it, 5-minute conversation on the couch, right? Brought me to that. And so thank you for that. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So, Jeff, brief introduction and then tell us about your Sacred Gut Punch.
Sure. So I am also a consultant and coach, executive coach, living in the Northeast, and actually have recently expanded my world that was not indirectly related to my gut punch, but I'm also now a psychedelic minister.
You know, Jeff, I love that name. I mean, I want to know who your marketing agent is, right? I mean, it's just, I'm a psychedelic minister. You know, I say that. Have you said that on an airplane to the person in the seat next to you yet? I mean, I'm just curious where the conversation went, Jeff.
I have. It's always interesting. I was at a party this last weekend, meeting some new people, and I was declared, and using that introduction, and I was declared by at least one person as the most interesting person at the party. And I think it was in no small part because of that title.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Oh.
Anyway, I'm married. We have 3 boys together. And that's actually where the gut punch comes in. My oldest son, Max, so I have 3 boys, as I said. I have a 21-year-old Sam, who's a student out in Colorado. I have a 23-year-old Nate, who's a recent graduate, also out in Colorado, and is now a somatic healer working in the Boulder area. And my oldest son, Max, would be 26. And I say would be because he died a little over 4 years ago after a brief but intense 9-month battle with lymphoma.
So let's just stop right here, Jeff, and honor. Here come the tears again.
That's okay. We're gonna
we're gonna cry through this.
We're both gonna cry during this.
Yeah, I just want to honor anybody, Jeff, who's lost a child. It's the club you don't ever hope you belong to, and my heart breaks for everybody who's experienced that.
You know, one of the epiphanies I had around it was just, I mean, it truly is impossible. And just as a parent, it never even crossed my mind in a real way that my kids would of course be a part of my life for the rest of my life. Every parent worries about something terrible happening to their kid, but not as a reality. And to have the reality land on you is gut punch isn't a bad word for it. I could come up with a lot of other more colorful.
Yeah, yeah, a lot. Yeah, I'm sure they're more colorful. And do you mind taking a moment and explaining to us, if I remember correctly, it's a unusual or rare form of cancer?
Well, lymphoma is not necessarily a rare form of cancer. In fact, when he was first diagnosed, I do a lot of work in the biotech world, working with small companies doing kind of new drug discovery and that kind of thing. And I remember one of my chief scientific officer clients at the time, when I told him about the diagnosis, he said, it's crazy to say this, but in a strange way, this is great news because lymphoma is a really well understood disease, and there are so many good treatment protocols out there. I mean, so many that actually there's really nobody doing new drug discovery in lymphoma research.
Wow, Jeff, I stop you for a second there. I didn't realize, for some reason I thought it was either very aggressive or very rare or something
It
along those.
was, it was, and he had a very aggressive and very rare form.
Okay.
Technically, he had non-Hodgkin's B-cell lymphoma, and there are three primary types of it. They were never able to definitively type his, which also meant that there weren't, none of the successful treatments that they had, and we tried, we tried all of them.
So Jeff, actually, I don't know if you were a big Ted Lasso fan,
I am, yeah,
but it's the hope that kills,
yes,
right? And having someone say, and I get the saying in response to someone who's just been diagnosed with cancer. Oh, I mean, because I said it to myself, Jeff, right? When they discovered the melanoma on my back that had to be surgically cut out,
yeah,
I was like, oh, well, at least it's only melanoma. We know how to treat that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. And that creates, in some ways, I think, a false hope.
I go back and forth on that. Actually, I would challenge that a little bit. Our oncologist was very hopeful at the beginning of Max's treatment, and and I wanted her to be, right. Like I wanted to know that she had this. They were going to bring in the big guns, and we were up at Dana-Farber in Boston, and they were going to do everything possible to to get Max through this. And we had treatment options, and because he's young, we started him with the most aggressive treatment option that they had because he was young and he was healthy and his body could take it. And we were full of hope for the first several months, and right up until we weren't, right up until and the treatment seemed to be working right up until the point where it didn't.
Mm.
And and there's just this roller coaster of anyone who's been through it, whether you survive or not, it's just brutal. There's just incredible highs where you're getting great results and things look like they're working. And then for reasons that no one can explain because nobody really understands, things stop working. And you start down, the decline of the roller coaster.
Mm.
And then the next big option, Max had something called CAR T therapy, which is that was the second line of treatment, which is it's bleeding edge stuff. They take T cells out of your body, which is part of your immune system, and they take cancer cells and they basically train your T cells to attack the cancer cells, and then they put it back into your body. And so in January 5th, 2021, Max it takes 30 days for them to grow these cells. So December and Christmas was a really intense time.
Mm.
waiting and watching watching the cancer progress. And then he had the T cells injected. And if they're working, what it looks like is, imagine the worst case of the flu that you've ever had, and then multiply it by 10. Because your immune system just cranks up and it goes to work. And Max had what they would say in the business, a robust response.
Oh, don't you love their terminology?
And we thought it was, and he finished the treatment on January 12th and went home on the 21st. And the standard protocol is that at 30 days post infusion, they do a PET scan, and the PET scan showed more cancer than in the beginning of December. And so it probably did work for some amount of time. And then the cancer just came back, and it came back with a vengeance.
Jeff, I can't imagine as a parent. Yeah.
I remember driving home from Boston with Max after, kind of we got that word, and we're talking, and the doctor was honest. She said, look, CAR T is kind of the silver bullet. It's the thing that works when nothing else will. And if it doesn't work, there aren't a whole lot of other options. And so we're driving back in the car, and I'm talking to Max, and I'm saying, well, look, this doesn't look good, buddy. What do you want to do? Do you want to keep going? Because, the CAR T was no walk in the park. And he's like, well, hell yeah. I'm like, I'm not done. I'm not done living. I'm not, I got a lot more things I want to do and a lot more things I want to learn. And I was like, well, great, because I got a lot more stuff I want to do with you and a lot more stuff I want to teach you. And, in a week or two after that, I remember sitting down and talking, just Lara and I, my wife, with the doctor, and she had that impossible conversation with us, which was, and was the most graceful way I can imagine. But basically, she said, "Look, I think we're going to keep trying. There are some other things that we can look into, and that we can try with Max. And I'll never forget this phrase. You should start to think about making memories together."
Jeff,
which is code for your son's likely not gonna survive.
How did you sit there with your wife and absorb that information?
Well, as they say in Brooklyn, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. And this is an insight that didn't come to me until much later, but one of the things that my parents gifted me with was an incredible sense of agency. You can have whatever you want in this world if you're willing to work hard enough for it. It doesn't, you don't get to have whatever you want just because you want it, right? But if you're willing to work for it, you can have whatever you want. And I've always lived my life that way and worked really hard for the things I really wanted. And for the most part, have gotten those things. Either that or I stopped wanting them. Right? I never stopped wanting Max to live. And I never stopped working to make that happen.
Yeah, what was the moment for you, Jeff, though, when you knew? I remember my father passed away from colon cancer that spread across his body, and a friend of ours got a consult at Duke University, which is about an hour away from where we live. And I'll never forget the doctor at the end of the day saying, take your dad home, make him comfortable. There's not a lot left there's nothing we can do. And I remember the ride home, that hour-long ride, Jeff, as if it were yesterday. Because what do you say? Other than I love you.
Uh, I'm kind of dense this way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I don't, I don't give up easily. You know, after that conversation with the doctor, it was like, okay, but we're not done. And I continue to do, my own research and bringing ideas back to them. And before Max got sick, I never could have tell you why I've worked, for the last 25 years in biotech and in life sciences. And then when he got sick, I realized why. And it was because friends, clients, former clients, people just came out of the woodwork to help us. And I was sharing, this latest bit of news about Max's journey with one of my clients, and he used to work at the NIH, and his closest friend still runs the lymphoma program at the NIH. And this guy in his lab has developed, 5 out of the 6, leading protocols for lymphoma treatment in the world. And he was working on the next one. And Adrian called him up, told our story, and a week later, we're on our way down to DC to the NIH
Wow, Jeff, what a miracle in the moment, right?
and getting Max into this trial. So there was always something, there was always something more that we were going to try. And it really wasn't until, gosh, like literally 4 days before he died that basically, we were down in Bethesda, and the docs down there, this trial, it was a kind of sophisticated cocktail of drugs, wasn't working. And they basically said,
Mm.
that's it. That's all we've got. And I remember sitting down, Laura, myself, and one of the doctors who we really loved down there. Ironically, she wasn't kind of in his core care team, but she and Max really connected. And the three of us had to sit down together with Max and explain to him that this was kind of it. He was going to die. And I'll never forget, the first time she said that, she kind of continued to talk about some other stuff. And I could see this kind of expression on Max's face. And then he said, wait, hang on a second. He said, are you saying that I'm going to die? And she's like, yes, Max. He said, like soon. Said, yeah, we can't predict, but you are going to die from this illness. There's no getting around that. And just watching that, settle into a 20, forget about his parents, a 21-year-old.
Mm.
And so we asked him what he wanted to do. And he said, I want to die at home. And so we ended up arranging a med flight to get him back up to Massachusetts. Fun fact, med flights cannot deliver somebody from a care facility to their home. They have to deliver them to a care facility.
Mm.
So they had to deliver him to a hospice place in Providence, about 40 minutes from our house, and then we had to arrange a transfer to our house. And I'll never, I mean, that was the longest night of my life, was the night that Max and I put Lara and Nate and Sam, they had come down to Bethesda when it was, clear that this was near the end. And I put them on a commercial flight home that Friday afternoon, and Max and I were supposed to fly out that night. And it was really a race to get him home before he died. And the flight couldn't go out because of weather in Providence.
Oh my gosh.
And until 1 a.m., I'm like, I just remember convincing, remember Mr. Agency,
Yeah. I
convincing,
am in charge here, people.
convincing, cajoling, screaming, crying, pleading, with the MedFlight people to somehow get us back there, and then just wondering if Max is going to die before I can get him home, and I'm going to have to call his mother and his brothers and tell them that he's gone. We ended up getting on a flight the next morning, like 5 or 6 a.m., and got him back to the hospice center, and had a really remarkable day that Saturday, where my wife had kind of put a broadcast out to people, to our immediate families, and also to his friends. We asked him, "Are there people you want to see before you go?" And he said yes. We had a list of 10 or 15 of his closest friends, and this was during COVID, so there were no more than 4 people allowed in the hospice room at a time. My wife's friends, they set up a freaking tailgate party in the parking lot of the hospice, and we just cycled people into Max's room,
How beautiful.
and he got to say goodbye to almost all of his best friends. I didn't want to leave the room. I wanted every last minute I could possibly get with him. I finally got convinced for 20 minutes of that day to go out and see the sun and breathe some air. But I just I mean, you know how you are with your kids on most days, that you just love them so much, you just never want to let them go, and knowing that you're going to have to, you definitely don't want to let them go until you absolutely positively have to. And that's what that day was all about. Sunday was a little bit less of the same, but still the same. I remember at one point, Max, it was pretty intense. And when there was kind of a lull in the action, and I kind of leaned in and it's just, how you doing, buddy? He's like, well, I'm okay, except like everybody's talking to me like I'm already dead.
Mm.
Mm.
Jeff, having been through that, we want to be there for people, but we're not well schooled or experienced in these things. And yeah, I wonder if you had the opportunity, going forward, to tell someone, if you're going to see this young person on their deathbed, they're still here. Don't speak to them as they're gone.
I can't say that I've had the opportunity to offer that advice to anyone since then. Thank God, actually.
Yes, really.
But what I'm about to say, I think has been true about me for a long time. This experience just brought it to a completely different level. And that is, what I find now is I can be with people through the hardest imaginable things, the most intense, most overwhelming emotions, and I'm able to be fully present with them and for them, in deep compassion, in deep empathy, and to simply hold them without, like, no doing, definitely no fixing, just a seeing, valuing, affirming presence,
Right. And needing nothing to be different.
needing nothing to be different.
Mm.
Yeah. Because I think that if I had advice for, how you be with these people, I think that's the most and the best you can do authentically anyway.
Mm.
If you want to talk about what brings comfort, right? That's what brings comfort.
Mm.
Telling someone they're going to be okay when you don't know if they're going to be okay, trying to inject hope into a circumstance like that, it's not useful. It's not necessarily harmful, and it's never meant to be harmful. But it kind of, in a way, it enlists the person who's struggling in some sort of felt need to take care of you, which
Right.
is
Yeah.
just which is the last thing in the world they should be doing.
Yes, definitely. Well, Jeff, as you look back on your journey of, and I've those of us in the community of practice we belong to have walked alongside you and your
Yeah,
wife,
yeah,
right? And I know that there have been some songs that have been very important for you
mm,
and your family.
yeah.
I wonder what's been for you some of the most meaningful or important tools in managing this level of grief.
Mm. Well, one of them is actually something I wrote,
Ah,
and I wrote it after one of my own. So I got introduced to psychedelics by a friend who offered that it could be helpful
right.
in my own healing journey. And man, was she not wrong. It's been nothing short of profound for me. Now I know you've
Wow.
heard me say that before, but my very first journey, which happened 5 months after Max died, and that's important. That's important when I tell you what the takeaway from the experience was. In a single word, the takeaway was contentment. Like this deep sense of everything in the world is exactly as it should be, including the fact that Max is gone. Which doesn't mean that I don't miss him horribly every day and that there isn't anything that I wouldn't give to have him back. But I've got this bigger life to go live as well. Not instead of, but alongside that.
Yeah, Jeff, one of my lines I tell my children all the time, I'm like, listen, it's Viktor Frankl's, it's not what you expect from life, it's what life expects from you. And if this is what life expects from me, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, doesn't mean I like it, but I have to keep moving forward.
What other what other choice is there?
Well, we can freeze in place, right? But that's not in service of your two younger children, is it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean that was one of the I totally get where the statement comes from, but one of the most irritating questions people have is like, you know, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you continue to move forward. Both Laura and I have said this. Like, we feel like looking at them and saying, I didn't know it was a choice. But so I want to read this to you. So this is
Please
something
do.
that I wrote after a subsequent just an awareness or an insight that came through in a subsequent ceremony. So, and I'll see if I can get through this without crying.
Well, I'll do the crying for you. You just read, okay, Jeff? I'm really good at that.
All right. So it's called A Warrior for Love. When you're a warrior for love, the wounds you receive are wounds to the heart. It's not useful to fully tend to these wounds in the heat of the battle, only as much as you must to continue the battle. After the battle and the loss, grief is the realization of these wounds. Then is the time to tend to them, to feel them, to writhe in their pain, the process of beginning to heal them. Eventually, slowly, the wounds begin to heal. They become scars. And even as scars, though, they produce a dull ache and sometimes a momentary sharp pain. And these scars, they never go away, and you don't want them to. They are reminders of the battle fought hard and lost. The battle for love. They are to be cherished because they remind you of who you are, a warrior for love. I don't ever want to get over my grief. I cherish my grief.
It is your connection to Max.
It's my connection to Max. And it honestly, it keeps me connected to myself as well.
When we first met, you were talking about the first time you did the psychedelics, and you talked about how Max showed up,
Gosh.
right? And you were side by side, and you were ready for battle. And he said, Dad, sometimes in war you live and sometimes you die.
Yeah.
And I died, right?
Yeah. What I just read you is the genesis. That was the genesis of this.
I get it.
I got this image of myself as this giant, aging, grizzled, battle-scarred silverback gorilla.
Mm.
And been through all of it. And then after a little bit, Max appeared next to me as this kind of younger, strong, virile, powerful silverback.
Mm.
And we went into battle together. And I got badly wounded and he died.
Wow. I cry when you tell that, Jeff. But isn't it such a poignant, beautiful truth of what happens in life?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful to him, and I'm so proud of how he navigated not just that time, but certainly that time, but navigated his life. I'm deeply disappointed is such an inadequate word.
Mm.
I so wanted to see how Max would move through the world. And I'm also so grateful to him because I don't think I'd be on the path I'm on right now if it weren't for him. I know I wouldn't, actually.
Isn't it strange how the death of a loved one can be the force that puts us on the path we were supposed to be on and didn't even know it? I mean, that's my father's death was that for me, right?
Yeah.
Without that, I would never have gone on to do, I'd have kept practicing law instead of, doing emotional well-being research.
Yeah.
And
There's a pivot.
yeah, you're not kidding, right? Well, Jeff, and first of all, just thank you for your rawness and authenticity, and wondering if, in wrapping this up, if there's anything you'd want to offer parents who may be having to walk the same path you are or you did with your son.
I think the most counterintuitive thing is also probably the best and most important thing that you can do. And this is going to sound so freaking bizarre, but it's to relax into it.
Mm.
The reason to step into it is completely counterintuitively and unexpectedly, it actually becomes a source of incredible comfort and even nourishment, if I can use that word.
Mm.
Go towards the grief, go towards the pain without expectation, without resistance. I got this powerful insight around in doing this work that I think it might just be a basic truth that all pain, emotional or physical, is grounded in resistance.
Jeff, I spent 6 months exploring the research on resistance and conducting some of my own. And
Okay.
and I have come to discover that it is the strongest force of humanity, right? our ability to resist is so powerful and so extreme and it is the thing that causes us to be undone. If
Pain and
that's even,
suffering.
yes, right, pain and suffering. So,
Huh?
well, that's beautiful, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing your story and letting us walk this part of the path with you. I love you and your wife and your children, and I'm just so glad to be part of your community.
Mm. Thank you, Tomi. I mean, thank you for asking me to do this and asking Lara. I think you're going to talk to her also.
Yeah, we're going to have a part 2 with your wife in the next episode. Yes, the male
Excellent.
perspective and the female perspective.
There will be many differences, but I think there will be some similarities.
And either way, there'll be lots of love. That's all that matters, right?
And I would actually offer that as a parting point, which is particularly if you're ever have the misfortune to go through this with someone, with a partner, is to have room for each of you to have your own experience of it. I don't know the statistics by heart, but they're not good around how particularly the death of a child can ruin marriages. And it's done just the opposite for us.
Yeah, so Jeff, that's a beautiful point. My father, who was a psychologist,
Mm.
We all worked in his practice from the time we were, I started when I was 7, right? I tell people I had my 10,000 hours of human behavior in before I was 15. But he said that the 2 most difficult things for a marriage to survive were infidelity and the death of a child. It was very unusual for for the love to be able to overcome those things. And I have just always admired you and your wife because I knew that fact in the back of my head, and I just watched you two love each other in amazing ways through this. And it's been a remarkable journey for you and a powerful opportunity for me to walk with you and witness the love that you have for each other.
Thank you.
Love you, Jeff.
Love you, Tomi.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Sacred Gut Punch. I'd like to thank our sponsors who make this podcast possible, the EI 3.0 companies of Brian Insights and the Center for Emotional Wellbeing, and of course, always to my husband, attorney Jim Bryan. Thank you for your endless support and love. I love you to the moon and back, Jimmy. If you're finding inspiration in the stories, please like and subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends and family who can benefit from these stories of resilience and rising. And if you're experiencing a sacred gut punch, remember, while you may feel alone, you are not. Help is out there. If you or someone you know is in crisis and considering suicide or self-harm, please seek support. Call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988, or chat at 988lifeline.org. And if you're not in the United States, Befrienders worldwide at befrienders.org can help you. Until next time, dear ones, may you use the difficulty as you rise with grace.